What if I told you that a single sigh can carry more wisdom than 1,000 words? It seems impossible, doesn't it? But in the history of faith, it's often not been grand speeches that have transformed lives, but rather small, almost imperceptible gestures that have profoundly touched the soul. Mary's sigh is one such mystery. A moment so subtle, so silent, that to the uninitiated, it may seem insignificant. But to those seeking answers, it can become a turning point. Have you ever experienced something like this? A sudden sensation, a subtle sign, an instant that seemed inexplicable, but that remained engraved in your heart as if it were a message made just for you. Today, I want to invite you to delve into this mystery. And it's not just about understanding what happened in Medjugorje or in the many apparitions of Mary throughout history. It's about understanding what it means to receive a breath of wisdom in moments of doubt, discouragement, or deep prayer. Because this sigh is not just a detail, it is an invitation, an intimate call, made in silence. To those who are ready to listen with their soul, in Medjugorje, there are accounts that go beyond the officially released messages. There are stories of gestures, looks, and pauses filled with meaning that were not recorded in words, but which deeply impacted those present. Among these accounts is a special, almost imperceptible moment in which Mary sighed, and this sigh was interpreted as a silent response, a sharing of pain, love, and hope. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because we're not just talking about history, but about something that may still be happening and that you may have already felt, even without realizing it. Think for a moment, how many times have you sought answers through prayer, but all you received was silence? How many times have you looked to the heavens, hoping to hear a clear voice, only to find only a gentle breeze, a heaviness in your heart, or an inexplicable peace? What if this is how heaven speaks to you? Mary's sigh reminds us that not all revelation comes with trumpets and bright lights. Often, God and the saints speak in the deepest silence, where only those willing to listen can hear. This breath of wisdom is also an invitation to slow down, to create space within ourselves. In a world where everything screams for our attention, silence becomes a sanctuary. And it is in this space that signs like this occur. It doesn't matter if you've been following the messages of Medjugorje for years or if you're hearing about it for the first time. The experience of feeling something divine in small gestures is universal. Stay with me until the end, because I want to show you how this mystery can change the way you perceive God's presence and how you can open your eyes to signs that are already around you at this very moment. Perhaps you're living in a time of searching, feeling like answers are slow to arrive. Perhaps you feel like your prayers echo in the void. But what if, in this apparent silence, the answer is already coming? What if Mary's sigh is proof that, even without words, heaven continues to speak to you? That's the beauty of this mystery. It's not obvious, it's not immediate, but it's real to those who allow themselves to perceive it. Now I want to take you deeper into this topic, because understanding this sigh is not just about understanding a specific event, but about learning to recognize when heaven breathes near you. And as we walk through this mystery together, I want to make a sincere request of you. If, in any way, what I've said so far has awakened something in your heart, leave here in the comments what touched you most. It could be a memory, a feeling, even a question, because it's in this space of exchange that we build something greater. When you share your experience, you're not just speaking to me, it's to everyone who, like you, is searching for signs, answers, and a little more light along the way. And since we're building this journey together, please leave a like now. It seems like a simple gesture, but it really helps more people discover this content and open themselves to reflections like this. It's as if each like is a breath of fresh air that spreads this message further. And if you feel like continuing to uncover mysteries, signs, and messages like this, subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. And we'll continue side by side, exploring every detail, every revelation. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content. Take a deep breath and come with me, because what we're going to delve into from here on out could transform the way you perceive the silent signs that heaven sends. When we speak of Medjugorje, it's impossible not to feel a mixture of mystery and reverence. Since the apparitions began in 1981, this small village in Bosnia and Herzegovina has become a spiritual meeting point for millions of pilgrims. Stories vary, but the essence remains. Young people claim to see Mary and receive messages from her addressed not only to them, but to the entire world. Over the years, these messages have been translated, studied, shared, and discussed in every corner of the planet. But there's a side to this story that not everyone knows. Beyond the officially released messages, there are moments that don't appear in the formal records, instances that weren't transcribed, but remained etched in the memories of those who were there. They are pauses laden with meaning, expressions on the seers' faces, subtle changes in the atmosphere, as if the air itself became denser, more charged with something inexplicable in words. Those who were present report that, at certain gatherings, something different happened. It wasn't just what was said, but what was felt. silence took on a special weight, and simple gestures seemed to contain entire messages. It is in this space that many believe the sigh of Mary is found, a brief, almost imperceptible moment, but with profound meaning for those who witness it. To understand this, we must look beyond the words. Imagine yourself in a place where hundreds of people wait in prayer. The atmosphere is one of anticipation, and suddenly, amidst the unfolding heavenly dialogue, there is a pause, a sigh, perhaps a gaze that disappears into the horizon, as if seeing something we cannot. For some, this may go unnoticed. For others, it is the exact moment when the most important message is conveyed not with voice, but with presence. This phenomenon is not exclusive to In various apparitions and mystical encounters throughout history, there are reports of subtle gestures and signs that were later understood as revelations. In Fatima, for example, witnesses spoke of changes in the light and wind. In Lourdes, they described the almost superhuman serenity on Bernadette's face during her visions. These details do not appear in official texts, but they remain vivid in the memories of those who were there. What makes the Medjugorje case so unique is that it's not limited to the past. While other apparitions have already ended, here, the narrative is still alive. People continue to travel there, hoping to experience something similar. And, according to many pilgrims, some of these subtle signs continue to occur. It's not always, not for everyone, but for those who experience it. It's as if an intimate secret has been entrusted to their hearts. The curious thing is that, in these accounts, the sigh is never just a sigh. It can carry sadness, compassion, warning, or even joy. It's as if Mary, in this brief gesture, reveals the weight of her messages, the love she carries for her children, and, at the same time, the urgency for them to listen. It's a moment that invites us to reflect not only on what she says, but on how we respond. This undocumented side also raises interesting questions about how we perceive the divine. Are we prepared to notice signs that aren't packaged in clear words? Can our mindset, shaped by a world that demands quick explanations and concrete evidence, embrace something so subtle? Perhaps this is the great lesson. Learning to read the invisible, to understand that hidden truth often reveals itself between the lines. In silence, in pauses, in an age where we live surrounded by noise, notifications, opinions, news, to notice a simple sigh may seem like a luxury, but spiritually, it can be the difference between overlooking a revelation and letting it transform your journey. This transformation doesn't happen by force, but in its own time, like a seed that germinates when it finds the right soil and light. By observing these signs, we realize that their impact extends far beyond the moment. Many pilgrims report that, years later, they still remember that moment vividly. It's not just memory, it's as if the meaning continues to grow within them, influencing their decisions, mindset, and even the way they face challenges. It's proof that certain experiences don't end when they're over, but rather continue to resonate. And it is at this point that the story of Medjugorje becomes an invitation to be more sensitive, to tune our ears and hearts, to not rely solely on what is obvious or easy to interpret, because perhaps, in a single breath, lies the answer we've long sought. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the value of these undocumented signs opens a new door of understanding about the very way God and Mary communicate with us. And this door, once opened, forever changes the way we walk in faith.com, and this makes sense to me. Mary's sigh carries a symbolic weight that goes far beyond the physical gesture. In spirituality, a sigh is not just an involuntary act of the body, but a reflection of the soul. It's as if it were the silent translation of a profound feeling, a communication that requires no explanation. And here's the point. Not all the most important truths reach us through clear speeches or well-formulated words. Often, they come wrapped in small, almost imperceptible gestures, yet capable of breaking through the barrier of reason and speaking directly to the heart. In silence, the soul expresses itself most purely. Think of the moments in your life when someone conveyed support, comfort, or even a warning without saying a single word. A look, a pause, a touch, or a simple sigh. There's something universal about it. Breathing, laden with emotion, can reveal pain, hope, concern, or love without a single word being spoken. And perhaps that's why, for many pilgrims who have been to Medjugorje, that sigh has become more powerful than any verbal message. When we bring this into the context of faith, we realize that the symbolism of sighing connects directly to divine wisdom. In the Bible, for example, we see that God manifests himself not only through thunder or great signs, but also through a still breath, as in the episode where Elijah recognizes the divine presence not in a strong wind, nor in an earthquake, nor in fire, but in a gentle breeze. This breath is the perfect metaphor for what we are exploring here. It reminds us that the Creator doesn't always shout to get our attention. Often, he whispers. And it is at this point that Mary's sigh gains depth. It is not just an emotional detail of a spiritual moment, but a channel of revelation. A symbol of wisdom that does not impose itself, that does not force, but offers itself to those willing to listen sensitively. Those who understand this change their mindset. They begin to seek God also behind the scenes of life, between the lines of events, in the small gestures that everyday life hides. This understanding also confronts us with the way we live today. We are so accustomed to noise, rapid opinions, and constant stimuli that we have lost the ability to perceive the truth hidden in silence. We want direct explanations, ready answers, and clear signs. But the spiritual path is often the opposite of this. It requires pause, attention, and listening that goes beyond the ears. When Mary sighs, it's as if she's saying, stop, feel, reflect. It's an invitation to slow down and grasp what truly matters. And it's curious how, by accepting this invitation, transformation begins to happen subtly, almost invisibly. It's not a sudden shift, but an internal reorientation that influences our decisions, our way of dealing with others, our relationship with God. It's as if each sigh reminds us that there is another level of understanding, a place where wisdom is measured not by the number of words, but by the depth of presence. Some pilgrims describe witnessing this moment as feeling as if a window had been opened within them. There was nothing extraordinary to the outside observer, but inside, something was moving. This is the power of spiritual symbols. They have a direct impact, without needing to be filtered by logic. And that's precisely what makes them so powerful. We view the journey of faith as a great dialogue between the human and the divine. We can say that the sigh is one of the most subtle lines in this conversation. It seeks not to convince through argument, but to touch through connection. And perhaps this is the essence of divine wisdom, to communicate so intimately that the message is only perceived by those who are truly open. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this symbolism isn't just about understanding a gesture, but learning to interpret an entire mode of communication that God uses to reach our soul. It's about realizing that, often, the answers we ask for are already being given, but in a way that only spiritual sensitivity can decipher. Right there, I'm on this journey too. There's one point in this whole story that sparks even more curiosity and also a certain unease: the existence of the 7 unrevealed messages of Medjugorje. Ever since the visionaries began sharing their experiences, the world has been divided between those who believe, those who doubt, and those who wait in silence for the fulfillment of what was promised. These messages, according to the visionaries themselves, were not given to be released immediately. They are secrets from heaven, kept under lock and key, awaiting the exact moment to be revealed. And it is precisely in this mystery that Mary's sigh seems to fit like a missing piece. Imagine the scene. Before a crowd, the seer listens, ecstatic, to something no one else can hear. Suddenly, there's a pause. It's not an empty silence, but a dense silence, charged with meaning. A sigh, a brief gesture, but for those paying attention, it becomes almost an invisible signature that something important has been said. If that moment were a bridge between what has been revealed and what is still hidden, the 7 unrevealed messages have been the subject of speculation for decades. Some believe they address future events of great impact, perhaps related to humanity's spiritual transformation or collective decisions that will shape the course of time. Others say they are warnings of imminent dangers, but that they can only be understood when the right context is provided. The fact is that, until they are made public, these small signs, looks, pauses, gestures, and, yes, the sigh may be the closest we have to their content. The interesting thing is to realize how, within spirituality, what is unsaid sometimes speaks louder than what is clearly pronounced. It's as if Mary, by not revealing everything at once, was also training our attention, preparing us to be able to understand complex and often uncomfortable messages. After all, when something is delivered too directly, we run the risk of reacting with fear or disbelief. But when we receive subtle signals, we are led into a process of maturation, in which the final impact of the revelation can be absorbed more deeply. This waiting also creates a shift in mindset. It's not just about waiting for an announcement, but about learning to live in a state of readiness. This is where the sigh regains symbolic power. It reminds us that, while the great truths are yet to surface, we can train our senses to capture the smaller signals, which are often more important. To our individual journey, it's as if, behind the scenes of a grand show, rehearsals are already taking place. Silent rehearsals, witnessed only by those in the wings with the actors. And perhaps, this is the key point. If we want to be prepared for the 7 messages when they are revealed, we need to learn to notice these rehearsals, these discrete moments, because they not only foreshadow what is to come, but shape our capacity to receive. A poorly received revelation can be lost, but a truth for which we have been prepared with patience and attention can completely transform our lives. Some say the 7 messages are linked to events that will change history, but that they can only be understood in light of a spiritual context we are still constructing. Others believe that, at the moment of revelation, each person will understand differently, according to their own journey, and this makes sense, because in the spiritual world, there is no one-size-fits-all formula. There is a way that is right for each heart. When I think about this, I imagine Mary's every sigh is a reminder. It is not yet time, but be ready. It's a call to vigilance and humility, because no one knows exactly what the final moment of this revelation will be like. And, at the same time, it's a call to not miss the small daily opportunities to hear God's voice, even if it comes. For now, as a gentle breath, now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this connection between subtle signs and unrevealed messages is to open space for faith and perception to work together, preparing the ground for when the hidden becomes visible. Comment. This makes sense to me. Among the many stories from Medjugorje, some don't appear in books, documentaries, or official records, but survive in the memories and hearts of those who experienced them. These are testimonies that speak of silent encounters, of moments when something subtle, almost invisible, happened and that for those who were there, meant everything. It's as if each of these accounts were a missing fragment of a larger puzzle pieces that, together, form a more complete picture of what truly happens in these encounters. An Italian pilgrim told me, with tears in her eyes, about the day when, in the middle of the apparition, the visionary paused for a long time. There was no sound, no movement, only that profound silence that seemed to extend beyond time, and suddenly, she noticed that the visionary's expression had changed slightly, as if she had felt a deep pain, followed by a gentle relief. This detail, which for many there might have gone unnoticed, for her was a direct answer to the questions she carried in her heart. She didn't hear words, but she understood the message. I know your pain, and I carry it with you. Another account came from a young Croatian man who grew up hearing about the apparitions, but had never truly become involved. One day, driven by curiosity, he decided to participate. During prayer, he noticed one of the visionaries looking at a specific point in the sky and then closing her eyes as if holding back a strong emotion. The young man described feeling a warmth run through his entire body and a peace he couldn't explain. He didn't see anything extraordinary, but he had the distinct feeling that he had been noticed in some way, as if the gesture had been made for him. This made him rethink his entire mindset about faith and divine presence. There's also the story of a woman from France who went to Medjugorje seeking a miracle for her sick son. During the apparition, she carefully observed the visionary's every movement, every breath. At one point, there was a slight smile, accompanied by an almost imperceptible sigh. For her, that gesture was confirmation that there was hope. It didn't matter if others hadn't noticed. For her, that smile was the answer she needed to keep fighting. What's most striking about these accounts isn't the grandeur of the event, but the intimacy it evokes. These are small signs, looks, pauses, gestures that carry enormous weight for those open to them. And this leads us to understand something important. Spiritual messages don't always come to be understood by everyone at the same time. Sometimes, they're personalized, targeted, and tailored to the heart of those who need to hear them. These experiences also show how each person's emotional and spiritual context influences how they interpret what they see. The same sigh can mean compassion for one, a warning for another, and even comfort for someone who arrived there silently asking for an answer. It's as if Mary, in the same instant, could speak in multiple languages, all silent, all profound. These testimonies function almost as behind-the-scenes glimpses of faith. What appears to the world is only the surface, but behind the scenes lies a rich story of individual encounters, of discrete revelations that shape each person's spiritual journey. And perhaps this is precisely what makes these moments so impactful. They are not designed to impress everyone, but to deeply touch those who are ready to receive. It's interesting to note how after these experiences, these people's lives change. Not necessarily immediately, but over time. They begin to make different decisions, reevaluate priorities, and see signs in their daily lives that they previously ignored. The impact of a simple gesture lasts for weeks, months, even years, as if that memory remains alive, gradually renewing their faith. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding the power of these accounts is realizing that, at the heart of spirituality, it is precisely the most discrete details that carry the most transformative revelations. Right there, I'm on this journey to silence. The spiritual life is not the absence of sound, but the presence of meaning. It is like a sacred space where human words are withdrawn so that God's voice can be heard clearly. The modern world has taught us to fill every moment with noise music, notifications, opinions, and, in this excess, we lose the ability to perceive what is said between the lines of existence. This is why silence becomes so rare and, at the same time, so valuable for those who truly wish to understand the divine language. Mary's sigh fits precisely into this context. It's not a gesture to be deciphered by immediate logic, but an invitation to delve into a space where there's no rush and where answers arrive in their own time. This sigh, charged with mystery, is like a key that opens the door to deeper listening. And it's not just about listening with your ears, but with your heart, with your entire soul. When we enter this state of silence, something curious happens. We begin to notice details that previously went unnoticed. It's as if life has a second layer, a parallel reality, where everything seems more connected and intentional. a change in light, an unexpected wind, a simple gesture. Everything can become a message. This is the kind of perception pilgrims report when talking about the most memorable moments in Medjugorje. It's not the grand spectacle that transforms, but the small spark of meaning that appears when the mind is calm enough to see it. In the Bible, there are several instances when God chooses silence as a means of communication. Moses spends 40 days in the desert before receiving the commandments. Jesus retreats to solitary places to pray. Elijah recognizes the divine presence not in the roar, but in the gentle breeze. All these examples point to the same principle. Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. And in fullness, we find the wisdom that the noise of the world prevents us from accessing. This attitude requires a change in mindset. Living in a rush, reacting only to what is urgent, distances us from what is essential. Silence is a training ground for patience, for listening, for a deeper understanding of circumstances. It teaches us not to react immediately, but to discern before acting. And here's an important point. Many wrong decisions arise from agitated minds. Many right choices arise from hearts that have known how to wait in silence. Mary's sigh carries precisely this lesson. It doesn't offer a manual of ready-made answers, but rather leads us to reflection. It's like saying, stop, breathe, allow yourself to understand beyond words. By accepting this invitation, our spiritual journey begins to take on a new dimension. We begin to value not only what is said, but what is suggested, what is felt. What is intuited? Many who have been to Medjugorje claim to have returned home with a different perception of the world, not because they received an extraordinary verbal revelation, but because they learned to value silence and what it holds. And this is a transformation that isn't limited to moments of prayer or pilgrimage. It permeates daily life, changing how we deal with conflicts, how we make decisions, and even how we view the people around us. Silence creates a fertile field for encounters with God. It is the stage where great revelations are prepared, where answers begin to take shape before they are manifested. When Mary sighs, she is not simply expressing a feeling, but demonstrating, in practice, how heaven works unhurriedly, profoundly, in its timing. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding the value of this silence is also understanding how it connects to other spiritual signs that shape our perception and transform our path. Comment: this makes sense to me. There is a type of listening that goes far beyond what our ears can perceive. It is inner listening, the kind that occurs when we manage to silence not only the world around us, but also the turmoil within us. It is in this silent, profound place that many answers appear not as a clear, audible voice, but as a gentle certainty that settles in the heart. Mary's sigh is a direct invitation to this kind of experience. It calls us to realize that, more important than hearing something from the outside, is learning to recognize when God speaks through us. In the intimacy of our spirit, this listening requires daily practice. It's like tuning an instrument. The more we practice, the more sensitive our perception becomes. At the same time, it's not something that can be forced. It happens naturally when we adopt a posture of openness and surrender. For many, this attunement comes in moments of deep prayer. For others, during a simple walk in nature, or even in the silence of dawn, when the city sleeps. The environment is merely the backdrop. What truly matters is the inner willingness to welcome what comes. There's something liberating about understanding that answers aren't always found outside. Our common mindset leads us to constantly seek external signs, confirmations, and approvals. But spiritually, the movement is the opposite. God plants seeds of understanding within us and waits for us to learn to recognize them. When we can do this, our journey of faith takes on a new dimension, because we stop relying exclusively on what is visible and begin to trust what is felt. This confidence changes the way we make decisions. Instead of acting impulsively, we begin to notice when something doesn't sound right within us, even if, rationally, it seems like a good idea. And the opposite also happens. Sometimes, everything around us seems to say something won't work, but there's an inexplicable peace that confirms that this is the right path. This peace is one of the clearest signs that we are aligned with divine will. Many pilgrims' accounts reveal how this inner listening was awakened, precisely in places of profound spirituality, such as Medjugorje. They say that, after experiencing a special moment, be it a gesture, a sigh, a glance, they returned home more attentive to the small confirmations their hearts bring. And this isn't limited to religious experiences. This sensitivity extends to everyday life, helping us perceive opportunities, avoid pitfalls, and recognize paths that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. The power of this listening is that it brings us back to our center. We live in a time where external opinions and voices compete for our attention every second. Social media, news, advice, criticism. Everything pushes us outside of ourselves. Inner listening does the opposite. It brings us back within, to the place where the hidden truth lies, waiting to be recognized. But it takes discipline and courage to maintain this posture. Discipline to set aside moments of silence every day, even if only for a few minutes. courage to trust your inner impressions, even when they aren't understood by everyone. And, above all, humility to recognize that, often the voice we hear isn't just a product of our minds, but a direct inspiration from the divine. In this sense, Mary's sigh is almost a universal symbol that God still speaks, but waits for us to learn to listen differently. It challenges us to abandon our haste, our anxiety for quick answers, and invites us to immerse ourselves in deep listening, where revelations come not like lightning, but like a sunrise, slow, gradual, inevitable. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding and cultivating this inner listening can be the key to unlocking answers that you already carry within yourself, but haven't yet recognized. Right there, I'm on this journey to when we look at the history of faith, recorded in the Bible, we notice a curious pattern. Many of the greatest transformations and revelations were not accompanied by grand visual spectacles or grandiose speeches, but by subtle signs, almost hidden from the eyes of the world. And this is precisely where the sigh of Mary finds a profound resonance with Scripture. These small gestures, which to many might seem insignificant, actually carry the weight of a message that can change destinies. Consider, for example, the story of Elijah. When he sought to encounter God's presence, he expected something immense, a mighty wind, an earthquake, a fire. But God wasn't in any of that. He came in a gentle whisper, a barely perceptible breeze. This moment is the perfect translation of what we call the language of heaven, discreet, yet charged with power. It's as if the divine wanted to show that it doesn't need thunderous noises to transform, only hearts willing to listen. Another example is that of Hannah, Samuel's mother. She prayed silently in the temple, barely moving her lips, making no sound. To those watching, it seemed as if nothing was happening until the priest Eli understood that there was a profound surrender there, and that this silent prayer would change not only Hannah's life, but the history of Israel. What was invisible to most was, in fact, a spiritual milestone. And what about Mary, mother of Jesus? At the moment of the Annunciation, there was no lightning, no crowds. There was just an intimate conversation with the angel, recorded so simply that it almost seemed small compared to the magnitude of what happened. And yet, it was there, in that silent moment, that the history of humanity changed forever. This is one of the greatest examples of how heaven works behind the scenes, without fanfare, but with eternal impact. This connection between Mary's sigh and the subtle biblical signs teaches us something vital. Often, what seems too small to deserve our attention is precisely what God is using to lead us to transformation. The human mind tends to seek grand signs to believe, but the spiritual mind learns to value the detail, the discreet gesture, the revelation hidden in simplicity. If we look at Jesus' life, we find this pattern repeatedly. How many healings occurred, not in crowded squares, but in personal encounters, marked by a few words, or even the simple touch of his hand. The woman who touched the hem of his cloak, for example, didn't hear a sermon or receive a public announcement. She received, in the silence of that moment, the answer to years of suffering. The impact was immense, but the action was minimal to human eyes. This makes us wonder if we're missing many answers simply because they don't present themselves in the way we expect. Mary's sigh is a reminder that heaven doesn't follow the pattern of haste and ostentation. It moves in its own time, often in silence, preparing the ground for revelation to be received deeply. There's also a direct connection to the parables Jesus told. He himself said he spoke in a way that only those with attentive ears would understand. In other words, there were hidden messages, truths beyond the reach of those who merely listened superficially. The sigh, like a parable, doesn't reveal everything immediately. It provokes reflection, requiring you to turn your gaze inward and patiently seek the meaning. This is the beauty of divine language. It is at once simple and profound, accessible and mysterious. When we connect it to biblical prophecies, we realize that the history of faith is a fabric formed by countless threads of discrete gestures and signs. Some have been recorded and studied over the centuries, others have been lost to time. But they all carry the same essence, that of a God who prefers to transform in silence rather than manifest in the storm. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because recognizing this connection between subtle gestures and big changes is not just about understanding history, but learning to identify these moments in the present. In your own journey, comment, "This makes sense to me." If there's one thing spiritual signs teach us, it's that they never appear by chance. A subtle gesture, an unexpected word, a look that conveys more than it seems, all carry a meaning that goes beyond the moment. Mary's sigh, in this context, is not simply a manifestation of tenderness or compassion. It can be understood as a silent warning, a call for us to wake up and prepare for what is to come. Spiritual preparation doesn't happen overnight. It is built gradually, in the silence of prayer, in the constancy of faith, in the vigilance of the heart. In several biblical passages, preparation is treated as a daily practice, not something we put off until the last minute. Jesus spoke of keeping our lamps lit, of being like the servant who is ready to open the door as soon as the Lord arrives. These images are simple, but they carry a profound truth. Being prepared means living in such a way that, when the unexpected happens, you are not caught off guard. And being spiritually prepared is exactly that, standing firm in faith, even when circumstances seem calm, because we know that life is made of cycles and that challenges arrive. Without warning, we often wait for a major event to awaken us to the importance of prayer and vigilance. But signs, like the sigh, remind us that the call to strengthen our spiritual life is already happening now. It's not for later, not for when things get difficult, it's for today. And this mindset completely changes the way we approach our faith. Routine, we begin to pray not only asking for help, but also giving thanks, discerning, and listening. We become vigilant not only against visible temptations, but also against subtle distractions that take us away from what is essential. Spiritual preparation also involves concrete decisions. It's not just a feeling of devotion, but practical choices that shape our character and our willingness to act. It could be choosing to forgive when it would be easier to hold a grudge, maintaining integrity even when no one is looking, dedicating time to communion with God even on the busiest days. Small decisions like these are, in fact, rehearsals for bigger moments. Mary's sigh is a gentle yet firm reminder that faith is not static. It needs constant nourishment to remain alive and ready. It calls us to remain vigilant not out of fear, but out of love for the truth, for the mission, for what we believe. And this preparation is not limited to facing difficult times. It also empowers us to recognize and seize opportunities to do good, to be a light, to act in alignment with our purpose. When we hear about challenging times, it's common to think of crises, persecutions, or drastic changes in the world. And, indeed, these moments may come. But spiritual preparation goes beyond strengthening ourselves to endure. It also transforms us to influence, inspire, and guide others through the storm. Because when we are firm within, we become a reference for those who are lost, a support for those who are weak, and a hope for those who feel there is no way out. This journey of preparation is silent and often invisible to those around us, but it is noticed at the right time. And when that moment comes, those who are ready will know exactly how to act. Not because they received an instruction manual, but because they lived each day as training, each prayer as strengthening, each decision as a seed of something greater. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this call to preparation is also understanding that every small sign we receive today may be training us for a purpose much greater than we imagine. Right there, I'm on this journey to, if we truly want to be open to perceiving and understanding spiritual signs like Mary's sigh, we need to create concrete spaces for this to happen. These signs don't compete with the noise of the world. They require fertile ground, and this ground is prepared with simple but consistent practices. It's not about inventing complicated rituals or following rigid formulas, but about adopting small daily attitudes that gradually shape our perception and sharpen our sensitivity. One of the first steps is to set aside a moment of absolute silence every day. It could be early in the morning, before the day's demands begin, or in the evening, when everything has calmed down. In this silence, there's no need to say anything. It's more about being present and letting the mind calm down. At first, it may seem difficult because we're used to filling any empty space with music, news, or social media. But it's precisely in this emptiness that the inner voice begins to become clearer. It's as if, little by little, we learn to hear not just sounds, but meanings. Another powerful exercise is contemplative prayer. Unlike long, wordy prayers, it focuses on presence. It involves closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and placing your heart before God, without rushing to ask or speak, but allowing simply being there to become enough. This practice changes our mindset over time, because it teaches us that our relationship with the divine depends not only on speaking, but also on listening and feeling. Reading specific passages can also become a channel of insight. Choose biblical passages that speak of subtle signs of God's silent action, and meditate on them slowly, letting a word or phrase stand out and resonate throughout the day. It's amazing how, when we do this, everyday situations begin to connect with what we read, creating a web of meaning that would otherwise go unnoticed. Practicing mindfulness during everyday activities also helps develop this openness. Whether walking, cooking, or driving, it's possible to pay attention to small details: the sound of the wind, the texture of food, the expression of someone around us. All of this trains our senses to perceive more and better, and if we train ourselves to perceive the details of life, we are better prepared to capture spiritual details as well. These exercises may seem simple, even banal, but their impact is cumulative. It's as if we are, little by little, building a bridge between the visible and the invisible. And the stronger this bridge, the more natural it becomes to recognize when a signal arrives, be it a gesture, a sensation, an intuition, or even a sigh. What we discovered in this process is that there is no right time or perfect place for spiritual signs to appear. They can arise while we're reading, while we're helping someone, while we're waiting in line. The question isn't when they come, but whether or not we're prepared to recognize them. And this readiness is only built with discipline, patience, and consistency. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because, by understanding how to cultivate this sensitivity, we come to understand that each small, daily spiritual habit is, in fact, a rehearsal for receiving messages and revelations that can transform our entire journey. Comment, this makes sense to me. Mary's sigh is not just a pretty image or a poetic interpretation of a spiritual moment. It is, in essence, a gesture, charged with purpose. It's as if each breath, each pause, carries with it a silent yet deeply personal invitation for each of us to stop and reflect on what we're truly seeking. There's a depth to it that goes far beyond the emotion of the moment. It's a communication that speaks directly to the heart, calling us on a journey of wisdom, peace, and clarity. When we look closely at this gesture, we realize that it is not an end in itself. It does not happen to be admired as an isolated mystical detail. It is a beginning, a starting point, a reminder that there are dimensions of faith that are not revealed in the rush of everyday life, but in recollection, in listening, and in the willingness to seek deeper answers. It is as if Mary, through this sigh, is saying, there is more to be seen, there is more to be understood. Come closer. Seeking wisdom, in this sense, is not about accumulating information or memorizing teachings, but about learning to discern. It's about filtering what we hear, see, and feel in light of something greater. It's about recognizing when an opportunity for spiritual growth appears, even if it comes disguised as a challenge, pain, or doubt. The wisdom this gesture invites us to cultivate is that which is built through experience, prayer, and humility, which, over time, irreversibly shapes our mindset. The peace he conveys is also not one that depends on the absence of problems, but one that arises from unshakable trust. It is the peace that allows us to remain steadfast even when external circumstances are uncooperative. It is the peace that keeps the heart anchored, even when life tries to push us toward anxiety and fear. This sigh is, in a way, the expression of this serenity, a deep breath that releases tension and makes room for God's presence to occupy everything. And then we reach clarity. How many decisions in our lives are made on impulse, in the heat of emotion, or under pressure from external voices? Mary's sigh invites us to do things differently. It teaches us to pause before acting, to breathe before responding, to reflect before choosing. It reminds us that clarity is not the absence of doubts, but the ability to act consciously even in the midst of them. It's understanding what the next step is, not because all the pieces of the puzzle are in place, but because there is the conviction that it is the right one. The most fascinating thing is that this invitation is personal. There's no one-size-fits-all formula. Each person who opens themselves to it will receive something different, depending on their journey. For some, it will be a push to start something they've been putting off for a long time. For others, it will be a call to leave behind something that no longer serves their life's purpose. And for many, it will simply be a reminder that they are not alone, even in the quietest and seemingly empty hours. This gesture, so simple, yet so full of meaning, is proof that God and Mary continue to communicate in ways that transcend words. It's as if there were a secret language, made up of looks, gestures, and pauses, that can only be understood by those willing to slow down and truly pay attention. And when this understanding occurs, it becomes impossible to forget. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding that this gesture is an invitation not only changes the way we see it, but it transforms the way we respond to it. And that's where real change begins, right there. I'm on this journey to what if everything we've talked about so far is actually just the beginning of something greater being built within you. Perhaps Mary's sigh has already found a place in your heart as you listen to these words, awakening memories, questions, or even answers you didn't even know you were seeking. This happens because certain messages don't come to be understood all at once. They linger, echo, and work silently until the right moment to blossom. This is the nature of spiritual signs. They don't compete for our attention, but wait for us to consciously choose to draw closer. That's why continuing this journey is so important. It's not just about learning more about Medjugorje or a symbolic gesture, but about allowing each reflection to have a real impact on your life, on how you make decisions, how you deal with challenges, and how you see the meaning behind each event. There are revelations that only open up to those who decide to delve deeper, and it is in this deep dive that we discover that Mary's sigh is not just a sign of the past, but a living call to the present. It reminds us that transformation begins within, that clarity comes to those who allow themselves to listen, and that peace is the fruit of a constant relationship with the divine. So, if this message spoke to your heart, subscribe to continue this journey of faith. Comment below. I want to hear Mary's sigh so we know you've reached the end. And don't forget to like and watch the next video, which will reveal more secrets of Medjugorje that few know. If you've made it this far, it's because this message somehow found a place in your heart, and that's why I want to invite you to continue this journey with me. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring these themes together that make us reflect, strengthen our faith, and see signs that often go unnoticed. Leave the phrase, "I'm with you until the end" in the comments, just so I know you were there for the last second of this conversation. And if this content touched you, please leave a like. It's a simple way to show that this exchange was worthwhile, and to help this message reach more people who also need to hear something like it. And now, there's a video right here that complements this topic and delves even deeper into this reflection. Click and stay with me there. I'm sure it will speak to you in the same way this one did.